In this episode, I'm speaking with Dr. Njideka Olatune, the visionary and creative energy behind Focus on Healing Wellness Institute. She is an accomplished naturopath and a leading authority on the cultural integration of traditional health practices with conventional medicine for mind, body, and emotional wellness. She has helped thousands of chronic pain sufferers relieve pain first, with addiction and medication-free pain relief treatment, using the power of touch and reflexology as an alternative in addressing the opioid epidemic. We talk about the importance of listening and being heard when we are in pain, the link between pain and stress, the imperfect journeys we've both been on of following what feels right in the moment, and Njideka has a gift for you to start easing any pain that you might be in. Whether you have a chronic illness, ADHD, burnout, or would just like to manage your stress better, this episode is for you. Thank you for tuning in to the Calm Your Nervous System podcast, where you will learn to regulate your nervous system, not just calm it. I'm your host, Jenny Adams, and I'm a somatic coach who has recovered from debilitating ME and trauma. Alongside my guest experts, I'm here to share tips, stories, and debunk jargon, what is somatics anyway, about how you can regulate your nervous system so you don't have to live with chronic illness, burnout, or debilitating trauma for the rest of your life. A joyful life is possible! Well, welcome Njideka, I hope I'm saying that right, to the podcast, and thank you so much for getting in touch with me and coming on to the Calm Your Nervous System podcast. It's great to have you here all the way from Washington, D.C.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to sharing information with your listeners.
Amazing. So the podcast is called Calm Your Nervous System. So most people listening are probably people that have something like a chronic illness like ME, CFS, or fibromyalgia, and burnout, ADHD. And I know that those two come hand in hand quite often. So what is it you do? Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, let me see. Let me do a brief travel down memory lane for you. Okay, basically, I'm a naturopathic healthcare practitioner, and I focus specifically on introducing medication-free alternatives in relieving pain and stress using the power of touch. And the therapy that I use is reflexology, which we can go into a little later. In terms of, if I share my background in terms of how I got started, I originally grew up on home remedies. And growing up on home remedies back at that time, doctors used to come to the home, and what they did was call house calls. And as a child, I'm seeing a doctor come to my house, and I said, oh, so this is what healers do. And I said, well, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a healer. So by the time I got to college, what I thought was going to be my healing experience career was not what was taught in medical school. And I said, oh no, this is not going to work for me. So I changed careers and became a social worker. And as a social worker, I covered the whole gambit, working from infants to seniors in every area of social service that existed. And one of the things that concerned me was the fact that everybody was going to the emergency room as their healthcare practitioner. And I said, well, something's wrong with this picture. And that sparked up the energy again to say, oh, I want to be a doctor. But at that time, that's when natural and alternative therapies were coming on the scene. And so then I went back to school and got my training to become a naturopathic practitioner. But I knew reflexology before I got into training for a naturopathic practitioner. So I just added my reflexology to my healthcare practice field. And to start off, when I started my practice, I opened my practice with senior citizens. That's how I built my practice. And they kind of laid the foundation for all of the work that I do today because of their experiences. And I always tell everyone, if you work with seniors, you have to understand how to be on point with them. You have to understand how to be able to deliver what you say you're going to deliver to them. And you also have to understand that by the time a senior becomes a senior, they want what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. And you have to be prepared to do all of that. And so just that experience, they kind of laid the foundation, because from working with them, one of the things that was the key point with the seniors was, I love what you do, but you know what? I want you to now start taking care of my feet and hands. So then this was saying, okay, I want manicures and pedicures. Remember now, I knew nothing about the beauty industry. And so the reason why I'm sharing this, because it's going to help you understand how I do what I do now. Back at that time, there was a school that happened to be on the West Coast that came to the East Coast to do a training program on reflexology in the beauty industry. So I said, okay, well, let me go take this training program to see how they're introducing reflexology in the beauty industry. And I went and did that, took the program, and they said to me, well, since we're here on the East Coast, we'll come down to Washington, D.C. and do a training program if you organize it. I had never done anything like that before in my life. So I got together all of my little colleagues and friends and put this little program together. As a result of that, I wound up becoming their East Coast and Southeast instructor, teaching the beauty industry reflexology. I say this to say that the seniors opened up the door for me to start teaching reflexology, which was not what I was thinking I was going to do. And so from there, healthcare practitioners started coming to me, asking me, how can we do reflexology? So then I opened up training healthcare practitioners reflexology. And from there, it led to me moving from teaching into the research piece. And I started researching reflexology as it relates to pain, specifically when the opiate epidemic came on and everybody was dealing with opiate and all kinds of pain. Mm-hmm. And so then I started looking at how we can incorporate reflexology to be an alternative to the opiates. And then I developed a program which is called Relieve Pain First Before Treatment. And then we do the integrative approaches of therapy as the treatment plan. So like that was the start, starting with seniors, moving from seniors into the beauty industry, and from the beauty industry into the education piece, and from the education to the research, into now focusing specifically and specializing in relieving pain using the power of touch.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing. And I have so many questions. I'd just love to reflect this path that you've been on. And I think for so many of us, there is, maybe we have a thought, a belief that we're going to become something when we're a child. And when I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a such and such. And for anyone listening that has ADHD, and whether this is something you relate to or not, this is such an important point, because how often do we go, we open one door and we go into that setting, and like you said, you ended up working with seniors, and then they taught you something, and then you ended up working with the beauty industry. And it's funny how when we just follow what feels right, we go on this beautiful journey that isn't necessarily about getting somewhere in particular, but let's just see where things go and follow the next right step. And so many of us can get stuck in that decision fatigue, or the stress that we'll have to do things perfectly, and what if it doesn't work out, and the stress of that. So just I love that there's been this evolution and journey for you.
When you look at it, it's all of us have a calling. Every last one of us. That's why we came here. I think Muhammad Ali said it so elegantly. Your life experience is the rent you pay the universe for your presence here. And
I love that.
that's like, what it is in terms of, and some of us are able to tap into what it is, and we move accordingly. And believe me, it's not, it may sound like it was an easy experience, but in actuality, it's not, because
I'm sure
some of those experiences are things that you may not feel that you're ready to do. Or you be saying like, why me, but if it's your calling, it's not going to let you go. I tell you, through my whole experience, there were times when I say, no, I don't want to do this. This is that. And then I may step away, but here it is. It's going to creep back in again, because this is what you're supposed to be doing. And this is where you're supposed to be going. And I'm not leaving you until you complete that particular lesson of your life's journey and your life's experience.
Yeah, and I can really relate to that. And there's a question in here, but I know for myself, I work with ADHDers and people with chronic illnesses, and I do a lot of trauma work with people, and it's coaching, but there is a therapeutic element to it. I studied psychology for 4 years. I got into university to study psychology, and I went off and went traveling, and I got a taste of earning money and was like, I want a new car, not 3 years of studying. So I'm going to go have a new car. But I am so thankful that I went down that route, because I feel for myself, because I've been through this chronic illness journey. And for anyone who hasn't heard my story, like I was in a wheelchair for a lot of my 20s because I was so ill with ME, CFS, and not having a diagnosis or an understanding of having ADHD. Wow. So now that I've come out the end of that and I've recovered, I have so much more compassion and empathy and understanding, as opposed to just looking at the medical model of these structures of how things should be done, and this very prescriptive piece in the Western medical world. And I'd be interested to hear your perspective on the Western medicine, because you said you grew up on these home remedies, and there's a piece in here about trust. We're very much in the Western world told we go to the doctors, we take a pill, that will make us better.
I love that question. And to answer that, I always say one of the things that Western medicine does well is diagnosing. When they get it right, diagnosing is something that they are good at when they get it right. Now, the next thing, Western medicine is not good at treatment. They know how to cover up. And the reason why I say that is because they only look at what is perceived to be the problem. And the reason why I say perceived, because the one major reason a person goes to a doctor is because they are in pain. Otherwise than that, they don't go to the doctor. If I'm in pain, I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go see a doctor as it relates to this pain. And what I'm going to share right now to answer your question, I always tell my clients that there's some things that you need to understand about your relationship with your healthcare practitioner. And it's not what you think it is. And the way I explain it is, I use the example of an automobile. No, wait a minute. Before I say that, one of the things that if you look at the business side of the health profession, when you go to the store to buy something, you know exactly what it is you want, and you go and you find it and you purchase it because that's what you want. The same thing applies to us as healthcare practitioners. when you come to us, the one thing you want is pain relief. You're not interested in anything else but relieving whatever pain you're in. And so the missing piece for the doctor in addressing what their patients / clients want is the first tool of healing to begin the process, and that's called listening. Doctors do not listen, and listening is the first tool needed to be about healing. And the reason why I say that is because they don't focus on this very key point. And the key point is pain does not exist without stress. Pain and stress go hand in hand. They work together. And if you're not dealing with the pain and the stress, you will not get to the end result of healing. And that's the reason why I say relieve pain first before treatment, which means that when a client comes to me, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to allow you to talk to me about your pain. I want to hear everything about your pain. And the reason why is because I'm listening to find out what is the stress connection to your pain. Then when I find the stress connection, and when I say that, when I say stress connection to pain, what I'm talking about is whatever is stressing you out or whatever is affecting you mentally, that connects to you physically, that connects to you emotionally, that connects to you spiritually, and even connects to you financially, are all of the stress factors related to your pain. And so once I'm hearing this, then we move to, now let's work on relieving your pain. And that's where the reflexology comes in relieving the pain. And after your pain is relieved, now you're more apt to want to move into treatment. And when I say treatment, I'm talking about the integrative approaches, because wherever you're having pain, say for example, even with the fibromyalgia, which is a nerve pain, what you're looking at, is it because my nervous system is depleted of nutrients and minerals? Is it because I need to exercise? Do I need to have massage therapy? Would chiropractor help? Would acupuncture help? Would therapy? Do I need to deal with energy work? It's a combination. We have 11 systems of the body, and each needs something different and specific, because there's no one therapy that can do it all. And so to piggyback onto your question, that's to give the scenario of what's happening that you don't see in Western medicine. And the main reason is because when a person goes to their doctor, they're looking for pain relief. And I tell everybody, if you look at your automobile is designed as an exact replica of your body. Functions exactly the same. You purchase a car and the salesperson say, well, in 6 months, blah, blah, you need to take it for a maintenance check. You need to do this. You need that. Or you're driving your car, engine light comes on, you hear some clanking or something. You take it to the mechanic and you tell the mechanic what you're hearing. The mechanic is going to know exactly what to do in terms of finding out what the problem is. That's because it's mechanical. We've got to stop taking our bodies to the doctor and relating to the doctor like we do the mechanics that work on our cars. A doctor, what's the first thing you'll do? You go in and you say, well, I'm having this kind of pain, blah, blah, blah. Doctor says, well, we've got to do some tests. And then when we do some tests, we'll be able to tell you what's going on and what's causing your problem. In the meantime, here's a prescription for you to take related to your pain. Now, I've given you a prescription, but I don't even know what your problem is, because in allopathic medicine, they're looking at treating the pain, but in reality, what is the cause of the pain is not where you're feeling the pain. Remember I said, stress is something that happens outside of the body that you bring inside and you internalize. Now, if you have weak areas in your body, that stress that's inside is trying to find an outlet. And so it may go to your back. It may affect the nerve. It may get to the chest area, some area where you're going to feel pain, but that's what it's trying to do, to get out of the body. And that's not the normal experience of elimination. So you now have pain, which eventually can turn into a defined, diagnosed illness. And so with all of that happening, because of the fact that you did not connect with what was going on in your body, because remember, pain does not happen overnight. It's a process. All of a sudden, you get a little twitch or ting. Oh, that's not feeling too bad. I can deal with that. Then it stops, comes back in. Oh, it's a little more intense, but I'll deal with it. I'll just bear it. Then it gets to the point that it becomes a chronic crisis situation, leads you to the doctor to relate to it. But by that time, it's in a chronic or a serious state. So when you look at it from the standpoint of allopathic and the process, we play a role in why we have the health problems we have, because we don't connect with our body when it gives us the warning systems that I need a rest, I need a cleanse, I need some therapy, I need some energy work. It's telling you it needs something, but we're not paying attention.
And I just want to jump in and just say as well that if anyone's listening and feeling like this is a call to be doing more, the society we live in, we don't get taught to how to connect to our body. If anything, we get taught how to disconnect from our body. And I know from my own experience, and when you talk about the first step in healing is listening, how insanely big this revelation was for me on my own journey when I paid to see a private doctor, because here in the UK we've got the NHS, and I paid to see a doctor for an hour. And that was the first time in my life I'd had a medical professional sit and listen to me and go into the story and all of these things that are linked that you just don't have the time to do in 10 minutes. And I felt so seen and so validated. And I think that she might even not, like, she didn't help me, she didn't give me any treatment as such, but just that experience, this was 8 years ago now. I can still remember how I felt in that moment of just being heard and seen, and it's so important. And when we're looking at this disconnect and stress, like I remember going to the doctors and occasionally they might ask, are you stressed? I didn't know I was stressed. I look back now and I think, oh my God, yes, you were stressed. But it's that horrible analogy of like the boiling the frog. If you chuck a frog into boiling water, they'll jump straight out. But if you put them into cold and you turn it up, then they don't notice. And for anyone listening, I mean, what advice would you give for anyone that you might see that you can see that they're stressed, but they're like, no, I'm fine. You know, I'm only sleeping for 4 or 5 hours a night. And that is just the norm. And you're so in it, you don't know. But they're going to the doctors and going, yeah, but my back pain, that's nothing to do with my lifestyle. How do we start to reconnect and bring those things together and do it in a kind and compassionate way that isn't blaming us for doing the things wrong?
The thing that I think that's most important is to learn how to reconnect with who you are.
Mm.
Start validating who you are. And once you understand, and the way I use this example with my clients, I tell them, you're either one of two things. You're either a warehouse, either you see your body as a warehouse, or you see your body as a temple. Now you take a pick. In a warehouse, what do? You just store stuff. Anything is in there. It doesn't matter. You may not ever clean it up. You just store it. That's one way of how you validate yourself. If you see yourself as, or see your body as a temple, something sacred, something special, that means you're going to take care of it. You're going to do what is best for your temple.
Mm.
And when you understand that, then you start making the changes, because the changes begin in the mind, which leads to the other component of relieving pain and stress. Just like I said, pain and stress go hand in hand. Also, mind, body, and spirit go together. That's the holistic approach. You got the pain, you got the stress, and now in order to relieve the pain and the stress, you got to connect it with the mind, the body, and the spirit. And let me give an example of what that looks like. What I'm sharing with the audience right now is, think about your funny bone on your elbow, and all of a sudden you hit it. What's the first thing you're going to do? The very first thing you're going to do.
Notice that it hurts.
There's
Say,
something
ow,
you're going to do.
rub it.
Before you do this, was one thing you're going to do first. As soon as you hit that elbow, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Or
you're going to make a sound. It may be nice and it may not be nice, but you're going to make a sound. That's called a verbal response. Message goes up the nerve endings to the brain. Trauma, stress in the elbow area. Then what's the next thing you're going to do? After the verbal release, what's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to put your hand on that area and start rubbing it. Message goes up the nerve ending to the brain. Release the body's natural pain relievers, known as endorphins. Now what we're doing is, that's the mind-body connection working to relieve the pain and the stress. That's the operation that we've got to understand, which means that the power to heal yourself is inside your hands. Everyone has it. Mm-hmm. And when you understand that, that's your first step in taking back control of your life as it relates to pain and stress. It's in your hands.
Yeah, and that is such an empowering piece of knowledge and wisdom to actually hold, is understanding that we are the healers. We are the people that can ultimately help ourselves, fix ourselves, if that's what you want to say. Because when we're giving our power away to doctors, I work as a coach. If the work that you do as well, we are not the people that fix anyone. People can come to us and they can get some guidance and advice and support, but ultimately you're the one that's doing the work. And I have worked with people, the vast majority have integrated. I've worked with one or two that just haven't wanted to do the work, and they're stuck in the same place because you're the one that does the work. It's not us in our position.
That is so true, because that's the reason why I say we've got to stop treating our bodies when we go to the doctor like we do our automobile with the mechanic, because the process of healing is a two-way street. As I give, I receive. As I receive, I give. And you've got to understand that process, because one of the things you need to know about a healthcare practitioner, we are not the healers. What we do is assist the body in the healing process. And in order for that to work, it has, like you just said, it's a two-way street. It has to be the patient client working with the practitioner as the practitioner is working with the patient client. It's a oneness. You both have to be on the same page, working together collectively and cooperatively together. And with that approach, now you're able to return back to having optimum health and wellness when the two are working hand in hand.
And I see, and I won't go down this rabbit hole because there are other episodes on this, that phrase you said, as I give, I receive, and as I receive, I give. So often that balance is out of whack.
Yes.
And we are either, generally, most of the time, the people that I see that are unwell are givers. And I say this as myself, and we are not comfortable with receiving. Yes. And therefore we're not receiving, our body's not receiving anything.
Exactly.
And then we can link this to, why am I not receiving love? Why am I not receiving the clients I want? Why am I not receiving money? Why am I not receiving health? Why is no one giving me attention? Because we're not giving ourselves that. So I'm not going to go down to that rabbit hole because we will be there all day. But getting out of the way sometimes and allowing our body to heal. It's fundamentally what it is wanting to do and is set up to do so much of the time. So I'd love to hear more about the reflexology you do and how anyone could potentially start doing that at home. Tell us a bit more about it.
First of all, to lead into the reflexology, it's real important to understand that the first gift that you can ever give has to be the gift of love to yourself. That's where it begins. When you're able to gift yourself the gift of loving who you are, regardless of all of the labels, of all of the negative comments that you have heard throughout your life. Understand that that's not who you are. You defined who you are. And when you learn how to stand on defining who you are, all the things that you feel that you don't have, you will start having because you've given it to yourself. That's the first thing. Understand that you are entitled. You were created to have whatever it is that you've ever wanted for yourself. You have it. You may not physically see it, but you have it. And see, that's the first step. Understanding that you are worthy. And that's why I say, see yourself as the sacred, valuable, treasured temple that you are. When you have that inside your mind, inside your heart, you become unstoppable because it's your gift. That's who you are. And nobody can take that away from you because that's who you are. Now, to move into the reflexology. Reflexology is the art and science using the nerve endings in the hands and feet and ears to relieve stress, pain, discomfort, improve circulation, reduce toxins and impurities from the body. The way for you to understand that is if you ever look at a picture of the nervous system, you'll see how all the nerve endings begin in your head and have ending points as it runs through the whole body, ending in your hands, your feet, and your ears. And what a reflexologist does, I always like to refer to this example. If you ever, in your house, if the electricity goes out, you'll flick circuit breaker and the electricity comes back on. If that doesn't work, then you'll have to call in an electrician to come, and it's probably something wrong with the wires. Well, that's what a reflexologist is. We are the electricianists of the nervous system. What we do is we look for the disconnect in the nerve endings that's connected to the various organs and systems in the body, looking for how we can reconnect so that the energy can start flowing. The messages between the nerve endings and the brain can start being delivered to the various organs and systems in the body that is requiring whatever it's in need of. So what we do is we keep the body's communication center operational, the nerve endings and the brain. That's the essence. Now, everybody who's listening has done reflexology and even has received reflexology and don't know that they actually have. And let me share with you what I mean when I say that. As a child, you may have experienced it. And as a parent or guardian, you may have done it. And it's called This Little Piggy. And if you know This Little Piggy, where you're working the toes and you're circling the little toes, you're moving them backward and forward, what happened is all of the nerve endings to your head are in your fingers and in your toes. So which means that when you were circling the toes, moving them backward and forward, what you were doing, you were activating the nerve endings to bring relaxation. What happens is, for a baby, they may start, giggling or just totally enjoying the experience. If they were hyper and need to be calmed down, all of a sudden they can calm down. If the energy level was kind of low and they were irritable and cranky, it kind of soothes them because you were activating the nerve endings in the brain to release and bring stress to the area. So I'm saying that the power is in your hands. It's in your feet. It's in your ears to be about relieving stress and pain. And here's a little example that I could share for your listeners to be able to understand. You're going to take your thumb and with your thumb, you're going to do, it's like a bending motion. You're going to bend your thumb up and down. And what you do is you put the thumb on the palm of your hand, like at your wrist area, and all you're going to do is walk up and walking across the palm of your hand. And as you're walking across, now you don't know specifically what you're doing, but what it's actually doing is activating nerves. You can also do the same thing on your fingers. You can walk each finger. And you can do the palm as well as the back. You get in habit. This is what you do when you start feeling stressed or tense. Just get in the habit. Just hold your hand and just start walking the palm of your hand as well as the back of your hand. Whenever, and each of the fingers, whenever you're feeling stressed or you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling anxious, take a moment to walk. And as you're doing this, remember to deep breathe. Inhale, let it out. Inhale, let it out. Now you're calming yourself. This is what's called regrouping. You're regrouping yourself. This right here is something that you can do to help you in terms of bringing a sense of balance back to your space. Mm-hmm. That's a mind-body connection that's helping relieve pain and stress using reflexology.
Yeah, and if anyone's listening and they've followed along with this, then I'd love to hear how you got on with that. If you noticed anything, if you're on Spotify or Apple, you can leave comments below this episode or on YouTube. So let us know how you got on with that. For me personally, I can even hear it in my voice. There's just a little a little bit of a down regulation there, and almost like an opening, a slight expansion, a slight move back. And I say this now because I am very tuned into my body.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a few years ago, I'd have gone,
right.
Didn't really notice anything. Felt quite nice. So for anyone that might be where I was, that's like, don't know if that did much, like, keep at it and try. There's lots of different nervous system tools that you can do as well, that when you try them, you'll find the things that work for you at certain times.
Exactly.
But I know for a lot of us ADHDers, we love fiddle toys. We love to have something to do with our hands. And it doesn't always have to be like picking at our nails or our skin.
Right,
this is a wonderful thing when we are in a meeting, or, we don't need the fidget rings all the time necessarily. Do some reflexology. See how you get on. And I love that you shared such a good example of it doesn't have to be perfect, because I've seen the maps with all the different organs, and I don't know enough about which bit relates to what. But I guess if we're touching everything's the right bits are gonna.
That's the whole concept, because even if you're talking about ADHD in terms of, that means that there is a nerve ending that's not operating at its optimum at that particular time. And so you want to be able to deal with the holistic approach, looking at the whole body, connecting the body, not breaking it apart in bits and pieces, seeing it as a whole, and offering a support to that particular nerve ending that's maybe stressed at that time, or that particular body system that's stressed at that time. We're all coming together to support you. It's when you do reflexology, you're seeing how you're bringing all of the systems together in support of the one system that may be stressed out, or the one nerve ending that says, I need a little help over here. Can you send some energy my way, to kind of help me jumpstart myself so I can get back in harmony, like we all function together when we're harmoniously working together as one. And that's what you want to see. And that's also another part of valuing yourself, that I'm whole. And the other thing is, I may have been diagnosed with ADHD, but I don't have to carry that label. It's just a diagnosis. That's not how I define who I am. And that's what's so important in terms of, that's real a thing for me. I don't like labels, because the only label that is valid is your name. That's the only valuable label you have, because with that, there is a special reasoning in terms of how you got that name. That name is connected to something special and sacred. That's your only label. Outside of that, all these other things are totally irrelevant. And so your first tool to healing, whatever diagnosis you've been given, that's all it is a diagnosis to help you in your life lesson to perfect who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to go back to that point of, you said something earlier about the first gift that we can give ourselves is loving ourselves and accepting who we are. And that can be a process. And if anyone's listening and they're thinking, well, I'm not there, or that's for other people, or I'm not worthy of this, or I don't deserve it, or whatever comes up with this, when we can look at ourselves through the lens of I am, and I am love, there is no judgment on that. That is not right or wrong. It just, it is. And that is the kind of foundation of what we are. And if you were the same as me, then how am I wrong and you're not? Or worthy, or whatever labels and stuff we put on. And there's, I've done previous episodes and what that is and where that comes from. And also just talking briefly about the nerves and the nervous system here, especially for anyone that does recognize ADHD, because a label can be helpful sometimes. It can get you certain things, but it's not who you are. But there are stuff that comes with it. Something that comes up a lot is, I don't feel heard, I don't feel listened to, I don't feel seen, don't feel acknowledged. What are we doing to ourselves? Are we seeing those little areas that might want a little bit of attention? Can we give that to them? Rather than taking ourselves into the distractions, turn that inwards. What do I need? So thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. And if anyone is listening and would like to hear more from you, where can they find you? Have you got anything coming up that you'd like to share?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, in the African tradition, you never come to someone's home without bringing them a gift. And I have a gift for you as well as for your listeners. I have put together a poster on relieving pain and stress with medication-free alternatives. And all you have to do is go to Reflexology.com and download that poster. And that's my gift to you and your listeners, and saying thank you for having me. I'm also, my website is focusonhealing.com. I encourage you to visit the website, and in the contact me section, if you have any questions as it relates to pain, as it relates to stress, as it relates to how I can even be helpful and supportive of your healing process, by all means, send me a message. I will get back to you. That's what I do. I also have a book which is called Reflexology Today, A Family Affair. And it's a self-help guide in terms of how you can use reflexology in terms of relieving any type of pain and stress from infants all the way to seniors. It's broken down in that, and that's available. You can find that on my website, focusonhealing.com as well. And in conclusion, I leave this message for your listeners. Start each day with the two most powerful healing words in the vocabulary. And that means to begin your day with gratitude. And when you begin your day with gratitude, your first two words should be thank you. Give thanks for this new day that you have been blessed to receive. And then as you operate throughout your day, I leave you with this thought. Understand that the power to heal is in your hands, because the power of touch heals all.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and for everything, for coming on, for sharing your wisdom. We will link in the show notes to getting your website and social details, etc. So have a little look in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Calm Your Nervous System. I hope you found the conversation as interesting as I did. If you would like to start healing your nervous system, I have a free energy diary available just for podcast listeners, which will really help you see your blind spots about how you're spending your time and your energy. Find it at jennyadamscoach.co.uk/podcast. Find out more about me and somatic coaching in the show notes below. See you next time.